Okay, good morning class. So today we're looking at number patterns. In grade 10 we've dealt with linear sequences of the form Tn is equal to an plus b. Okay. In grade 11 we will learn about the quadratic number sequences. Okay, so what do you understand by quadratic? The highest exponent in x is 2. It's quadratic. Okay. Division of linear sequences. We are reading, these are the examples on page 70. Okay. Example 1 on page 70. So in linear sequences, the first difference between the terms are constant and uses the formula Tn is equal to an plus b. A is the constant difference. Okay. I think we were exposed to that other formula, no? Tn is equal to a plus n minus 1t. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, it's a similar formula. So let's look at example 1. So example 1 is on page 70. A, we are asked to write down the next two terms of the sequence 5, 8, 11 and 14. 5, 8, 11 and 14. So it's 5, 8, 11 and 14. So the question is, how do we move from one term to the next? We add 3, then we add 3, then we add 3. So again, we add 3, what do we get? 17. Then 3 we then get 2. So the next two terms of the sequence is 17 and 3. You guys understand? Let's look at B. Determine the general term of the sequence. The general term will be in the form of Tn is equal to a plus n minus 1t. Where a is your first term, what was my first term? 5 plus n minus 1 times a common difference, which is 3. So that's going to give us 3n minus 3 plus 5 will give you 2. And of course you can test if you're correct. Okay, we can test with term 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 3 times 5 is 15 plus 2 is 17, which makes the general term correct. When we do the test, we never test on the first term. Okay? Because we're actually using the first term in our formula. So sometimes your formula could be wrong, but when you test it on the first term, we show the right answer. Okay? So we always test on any term other than the first term. Okay? Let's look at example 2. Example 2 is on page 72. 1. Example 2 is on page 71. So here we are told to write down the next two terms of the sequence. Okay? So we look at A. We get 2, 3 over 2, 1. So what do you notice? You're actually decreasing it by not so. If you didn't know that, you could have said, okay, let's see, what is 3 over 2 minus 2? I get the half. Then you go 1 minus 3 over 2, I get the half, which means to say this is a common difference. You can make a note here that D is equal to T3 minus T2, which is equal to T2 minus T1. This is exclusive to arithmetic or a sequence that has a common difference. Okay? So make that note quickly. Okay, so please put your phone on silent, you don't mind. Alright, so how do I move from one to the next? I minus, subtracting it by half all the time. Not so. So if I extend this pattern using this rule, I'm going to subtract half, I'm going to get 0 and then minus half. So the next two terms are in the sequence is 0 and minus half. Do I have to write down the sequence like this every time? No, you don't. You just go into the solution. Okay? You all okay with that? In B, the question says, determine the general term, Tn of the sequence. Okay, so the general term here would be Tn is equal to A plus n minus 1d. What's your A value? 2 plus n minus 1 times your d value of negative half. So it's 2 plus n times negative half is negative half n. Negative 1 times negative half is positive half. So it's negative half n plus 2 n half. Okay, that's the general term. And again we test. Let's test with term 5 again. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Term 5 should be 0. So we go and we substitute. Negative half times 5, which is negative 2 and a half plus 2 and a half is 0. Can you see that, people? So yes, it works. Okay. So any confusion at this point? No. Okay. Then for homework I gave you, since it was a revision of grade 10 work, I gave you this for homework on Friday. Not so. Right. So was there any issues here? No. So whatever it is, I'm going to do a selected few. I'm going to do A, C, and F. Okay. So let's go with A. It says write down the first 8 terms of each of the following sequence. So T1 is going to be 1 plus 1, which is 2. T2 is going to be 2 plus 1, which is 3. T3 is going to be 3 plus 1, which is 4. T4 is going to be 4 plus 1, which is 5. Okay. T5 is going to be 5 plus 1, which is 6, and so on and so on. Okay. Let's look at C. And then they want to know the common difference. Not so. So what's your D value here? 1. Always 1 there. Okay. Let's look at C. We got Tn is equal to 3n plus 2. So T1 is going to be 3 times 1 plus 2, which is 5. T2 is going to be 3 times 2 plus 2, which is 8. T3 is going to be 3 times 3, which is 9 plus 2 is 11. Okay. Okay, T4 is going to be 3 times 4, which is 12 plus 2 is 14. T5 is 3 times 5, which is 15 plus 2 is 17. And so on and so on. Not so. So what's my difference there? 3. Common difference is 3. Can you see that, people? Which is also the number in front of it. Does it make sense? Let's do F. F. So T1 is negative 2 times 1 plus 3, which is 1. T2 is going to be negative 2 times 2 plus 3, which is negative 4 plus 3. It's negative 1. No? T3 is going to be negative 2 times 3 plus 3. Remember, Tn is, we go for T1, you replace n with 1, no? And so on. So it's negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. T4 is going to be negative 2 times 4 is negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. T5 is going to be negative 2 times 5 plus 3 is negative 7. T6 is going to be negative 2 times 6 plus 3 is negative 9, and so on. Okay? So what's my common difference here? Negative 2. Which is also the coefficient of n. Okay? This is example, this is the exercise 3.1, and it's on page 70. In question 2 it says for which of the following determine the next, for each of the following, determine the next two terms of each sequence. Okay. Do you have any problems here? No? So again I'll do a few. I'm looking at A, E, G, and J. Okay? So let's look at A. So you got 3, 7, 11, 15. So the next two terms of the sequence, how do I move from one to the next? I'm adding 4. Not so. So if I add 4, I'm going to get 19. 19 plus 4 is 20. So the general term, the B part of the second part of the question, is going to be in the form of A plus n minus 1d. What's your A value? 3 plus n minus 1 times 4. So n times 4 is 4n, minus 4 plus 3 is minus 1. Let's look at E. E. So it will be 3, 10, 17, 24. Okay, so how do I move from one to the next? Adding 7. Not so. So add 7, I'm going to get 31 and then 38. Okay? So my general term will be in the form of Tn is equal to A plus n minus 1 times D. What's your A value? 3 plus n minus 1 times 7. So that's going to give you 7n. Minus 7 plus 3 is negative 4. So Tn is equal to 7n minus 4. Any confusion here? No? The next one, G, is 1, minus 5, minus 11, minus 17. So, negative 1 to negative 5, I'm subtracting 6, not so. Subtracting 6, then 6, then negative 6. If I subtract negative 6 again, if I subtract 6 again, I'm going to get negative 23, not so. Again, 6 is going to give me negative 29. So the next two terms in the sequence is negative 23 and negative 29. General term, Tn is equal to A plus n minus 1d. What's your D value? A value? 1 plus n minus 1 times negative 6. Multiply, get rid of the bracket, so it's negative 6n plus 6 plus 1 is 7. Okay? Last one. J, you got 3, 3 over 2, 0, negative 3 over 2, negative 3. Okay. Now do I move from one to the next? You're minusing 3 over 2 there. Subtracting 3 over 2. Okay. So if you subtract 3 over 2 here, I'm going to get negative 9 over 2. Negative 3 over 2 is going to give you negative 12 over 2, which is negative 6. Is that correct? Huh? Right? So my general term, so that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question, remember, the general term is always the second part of the question. So it will be Tn is equal to A plus n minus 1d. What's my A value? 3 plus n minus 1 times d, which is negative 3 over 2. Get rid of the bracket, so it's going to be negative 3 over 2n. Negative 3 over 2 times negative 1 is positive 3 over 2. So it's going to be positive 4.5. Or positive, that will be 6, 7, no, 8, 9. It will be 9 over 2. So the answer can be written in mixed fraction or improper fraction, doesn't it? Okay. Any confusion here? No. Okay. Now we're going to look at the quadratic sequence that you're reading for today. The quadratic sequence. The general term of quadratic sequence is written as Tn is equal to an squared plus bn plus c, where n is given the position of the terms in the sequence. I want you guys to write the heading down as well as the introduction to this section. Okay, so we're looking at the example. This is example 1 on page 72. Example 1 on page 72. We're given an example here of the general term. As you can see, it's quadratic. Can you see that? It's the form of a n squared plus bn plus c, which is Tn is equal to n squared plus n minus 3. The question says write down the first 6 terms of the sequence. So where do I start? Start with T1. So it's 1 squared plus 1 minus 3, which is negative 1. Not so. T2 is going to be 2 squared plus 2 minus 3. C6 is 3. T3 is going to be T3 is going to be 3 squared plus 3 minus 3, which is 9. T4. You work out T4, 5 and 6 per meter. Alright, you guys finished? Still busy? T4 is 4 squared plus 4 minus 3, 16, 17. T5 is 5 squared is 25 plus 5 minus 3 is 27. T6 is going to be 6 squared plus 6 minus 3, 36 is 39. You all agree with that? Any confusion here? So that's the A part of the question. Let's look at B. B is calculate the first and second difference between the terms. So if I look at the sequence, it's going to be negative 1, 3, 9, 20, 17, and 27, and 39. So the first difference is going to be what? We're adding 4. Minus 3 minus 1. Here, we're adding 6. So you find the rest for me. Okay, so it's going to give you 8, then 10, then 2. So your first difference here, is this common? No. If the first difference was the same, then this should have been, if the first, yes, somebody was saying it would have been linear, which would have been of the first time. Not so. But what do you notice here? So this is your first difference. So let's go here. How do I move from 4 to 6? Adding 2, then 2, then 2, then 2. So my second difference is going to be constant. Can you see that, people? The second difference is consistent or constant. There's a constant difference. Okay? Any confusion here? No? So let's look at exercise 3.2. Yes? Yes. You see, everything I teach you in class, I show you in class, is examination type. Because I can't show you something that is not examinable, or you shouldn't be representing it like that in the exam, but I show you in class. That's not fair. So yes, everything I show you here is the way you represent it in your exam. Okay. So let's look at exercise 3.2. And this is on page 72. It says write down the first 8 terms of each of the following sequences. Calculate the first and second difference of the terms as in the example above. We just did the example now. Okay, so we look at that to the end. So I'm going to give you a chance to do number 1. Okay, and then I'm going to do it on the board. Okay. I'll pause the video at this point. Okay, so number 1. The first 8 terms, the general term is Tn is equal to 2n squared minus 4. So term 1 is going to be 2 times 1 squared, which is 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Term 2 is going to be 2 by 2 squared, which is 8 minus 4 is 4. T3 is going to be 2 by 3, which is 9 is 18, minus 4 is 14. T4 is going to be 2 by 4 squared, 16 times 2 is 32, so it's 28. Is that correct? T5 is 2 by 5 squared, which is 50 minus 4 is 46. T6 is going to be 2 by 6 squared, 36, 72, minus 4 is 68. T7 is going to be 2 by 7, which is 49, is 98. Minus 4 is going to be 96. No, 94. No? T8 is going to be 2 by 8 squared. 8 is 64 times 2 is 128. Minus 4 is 124. Is that correct? So now calculate the first and second difference. Let's go. The first number is minus 2. Then 4. 40. 28. 46. 68. 94. 124. Okay, so negative 2 to 4. What does that do? Minus, you're adding 6. Not so. Then 10. Then, sorry? 14. Then 18. Then 22. Then 26. Then 30. So what is, that's your first difference. Not so. Let's look at the second difference. You're adding 4. So what do you notice here? There's a constant second difference. You all understand? Right. Do for me number 3 quickly. Again, I'm going to pause the video at this point. You do for me number 3. Alright, so let's look at number 3 quickly. Number 3. Simply going to be Tn is equal to 2n squared minus 5n plus 1. What was T1? Negative 2. T2? Negative 1. T3? T4? 30. T5? 26. T6? 43. T7? 62. T8? Huh? Here we go here. Negative 2, then negative 1, 4, 30, 26, 43, 64, and 89. So how do I move from one to the next? You add 1, then 3, then you adding 1, then 5, sorry. Adding 5, then 9, then 13, then 17, then 21, then 25. So that's your first difference. Okay? How do you move from one to the next in the second difference? You're adding 4, then 4, 4, 4. Can you see that? What do you notice? There's a second common difference. Okay, you guys done with number 5 already? Huh? No? Okay, so for our homework, I would like you guys to conclude exercise 3.2. Okay. I'll stop the video at this point. The bell is in a ring soon.